What if I told you you could run a Tiger, a World War II tank weighing 54 tons, with wood? You would think I was crazy, but that's where you're wrong. Here is a picture of a Tiger converted to run on wood. Yes, wood, and I will explain how this process works. But first I want to give you a taste of the history behind this modification. During World War II, Germany desperately needed an energy source to run vehicles. Throughout the war, Germany was failing to produce the oil it needed for fueling its war machine. Synthetic fuel production was in progress to help, but it was never enough. It was said that the invasion of Russia was heavily motivated by Hitler wanting to control the oil fields near the Black Sea. Any fuel that was produced was sent to the front lines where it was needed most. Many civilians still needed to go about their normal lives to be productive members of society. Private cars, trucks, buses, tractors, motorcycles, ships and trains still had to run. And on top of all of this, the German army still needed to train people to drive tanks. In order to keep their training schools up and running, the German army began to look for new alternate energy sources. Many ideas and different programs were put into place looking for alternate energy sources. Town gas, or Stadtgas in German, is similar to gas used in cooking, like on a stovetop or for heating a home boiler. This gas could be used by vehicles which had to have modified engines and tanks for the storage of the compressed gas. That was just one method. Another thing was donkeys and mules. Not really an alternate source of energy, but hear me out. Donkeys and mules were used in large numbers to transport the equipment needed by the troops. Rather surprising for an army that was proud to have a vast amount of motorized transport and attack vehicles. Germany had 1.1 million donkeys and mules on average throughout the war. These animals were not only used to transport equipment, but to tow artillery pieces with around 8 horses per gun. Around 600,000 to 700,000 horses were used in Operation Barbarossa, which was the invasion of Russia by Germany. Coal is another energy source. It could be used to create synthetic fuel, and synthetic fuel is very similar to the normal fuel they would have used. They would be able to just create a liquid, and that liquid could be poured into the normal tanks of whatever vehicles they were using. But what we're going to be focusing on today is wood gas, also known as Holzgas in German, which will be the main alternate fuel source we'll be focusing on for this video. Wood gas is a gas from burning, can you guess it? Wood, in a process called gasification. Although wood doesn't have to be the primary fuel, other carbon-based fuels should work fine. In the same time period of World War II, China was using charcoal instead of wood in its gasifiers. Wood gas has similar properties to town gas, and if you remember, town gas is basically just domestic gas that you might use at home. There were several variations of gasifiers, and different people had different views on how they should be made. So I will just give a general overview of the concept of making wood gas. Chopped wood is placed into the vessel, also known as the gasifier. This is where the wood is burnt to produce gas. At the top of the vessel, there's a lid for depositing the wood. This lid is to be closed when burning the wood. At the very bottom of the vessel, there will be one or several air intake holes, and at the very bottom of the gasifier, there will be a pit with a grate above it. The grate stops the wood from falling down into the pit, but allows ash to pass through. The pit may or may not have an easy access hatch for getting rid of the ash, essentially just shoveling it out. The whole vessel though, this whole gasifier, should be a closed system apart from 2 holes. One taking air into the system, or there can actually be multiple holes, but for the sake of keeping it simple, let's just say one hole. One hole is for air going in, and one hole is for the produced gas to come out. The produced gas will travel down the pipe to a cooling unit. This is a fancy way of saying a radiator, you know, like the one on the car to cool the engine down. When the gas is cooled, water vapor and tar are removed from the gas. There will be a container or a tank to catch the residue from the liquid tar and water. The gas will then go into a filter, which will clean out the impurities in the smoke. The filter doesn't have to be complicated, even very fine sawdust will work. The gas is then drawn through, with the help of a blower, basically just an air pump, to a carburetor. The carburetor is a device that can control the mixture of air to fuel, or gas as it is in this case. It is important to have the right ratio of air to fuel to have optimal combustion. Finally, the mixture of gas and air can enter the engine. It may take a while for the gas to get up to an optimal temperature from when first setting the wood or other fuel source alight. It can take anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes depending on the fuel used and the amount of it. This is just one of the several downsides of Holzgas. The key downsides of Holzgas are the massive size of the unit needed, the main bulk being of the gasifier chamber and also the additional radiator for cooling the gas. The slow starting speed, like I said earlier, unlike petrol you just can't jump in your car and go. It takes time for the wood to reach an optimal temperature. This temperature is roughly over 1000 degrees Celsius, anywhere upwards of maybe even 1800 degrees Celsius. Another downside is less energy produced from wood gas than from fossil fuels like oil or coal. Finally, it is a fairly lengthy procedure to shut down the machine. Even if all air input valves are closed, the fire in the gasifier will be extinguished, but the residual heat will still produce gas. Precautions such as running the excess gas through another burner have to be taken. If the wrong shutdown procedure is used, there is risk that the gasifier may explode. Key advantages of Hole's gas: fairly cheap to make and run with the absence of oil and coal. Another advantage is easy to acquire wood. Any biomass can also be used as well, so you don't necessarily just have to use wood. Anything that can burn could theoretically be used in a gasifier. Cleaner burn than wood, which is very surprising. You would think for carrying a mobile, almost a bonfire on the back of your vehicle, you would have massive clouds of billowing smoke coming out the back, but this is not the case. I'm not quite sure how the chemistry works, but wood fuel actually has less soot produced than would be from oil or coal. If you want to know how to build a gasifier, there are plenty of guides on the internet and many videos on YouTube taking you through the process. If you're serious into wanting to know more detail and actually start to finish guide on how to build a gasifier, I kind of understandably oversimplified my description of this process on how the gas is made, since I'm actually not that knowledgeable on this stuff. I thought I'd leave it to you guys if you want to know more about it. Below is a document published by the US Federal Emergency Management Agency, also better known as FEMA. This document is way back from 1989. It is still very useful. You can find this document and other sources for this video in the description below. Wood gas doesn't have to just be to power your car. The gas can be used in a gas generator to generate electricity for your home. If there's ever a crisis such as fuel shortages or downed power lines, it will be rather handy to have one of these about. The system could be used in conjunction with solar panels in a rural area, as a backup power supply if normal fuels such as coal, gas, oil are in short supply or not actually available. Now we're going to go back to World War II now. Around 500,000 vehicles that were wood gas powered were used in Germany at the end of the war. This number is made up of personal cars, tractors, trucks and half-tracks, and tanks. Let's go into depth on the different variants of these wood gas powered vehicles. Let's start with tanks and half-tracks first. Here we have a modified Panzer I with a gasifier unit on the back. Notice the lack of a turret and superstructure. This is a common theme with training tanks. My guess would be this is to cut down on the cost per unit for training vehicles. Here is a picture of the same tank but with a larger vessel for burning wood, and unlike the last one, actually has storage tanks on the sides. This next picture is from 1945. Just visible at the back is the gasifier. You can see some storage tanks to the sides too. What I find interesting here though is the mock-up turret. From my understanding, this tank would have been used as a dummy enemy tank for practice. I included this picture because I find it rather cute. This is a Panzer III turret on a Panzer I base. The Panzer III is a much bigger turret than the Panzer I. An additional crew member can fit in here to practice 3-man turret operation procedures. Also visible at the back is a small gasifier. This tank has the biggest gasifier that I've seen on any vehicle, and it needs it. This is due to the weight of the Tiger being over 50 tons. Admittedly, driving school tanks are missing turrets and armour, so the weight may be quite less than the official number published. To put the weight in perspective, the tanks you saw earlier were Panzer Is. They weigh around 5 tons. That's 10 times less than the Tiger. Okay, let's go into half-tracks. Here we have a half-track with a small profile gasifier on the back, just poking out the back of this picture here. This picture has a better view of the low profile unit on the back. And here's another one, but with a much larger unit on the back. Notice how in these pictures of the half-tracks, the reservoir tanks are quite small. These storage tanks are for extra produced gas, which can be stockpiled in the reservoir tanks until needed by the engine. The reservoir tanks are smaller on the half-track due to the smaller engines, which have better fuel consumption rates than the tanks. Personal cars, trucks and tractors. This is an interesting example of the gasifier unit being built around the car. You can see the gasifier chamber on the back, with a pipe channeling the gas to an extra radiator fitted on the front. Just underneath the radiator is a precipitation tank. I find it interesting that the pipe carrying the gas is travelling over the top of the car rather than underneath it. My guess is because the process of making wood gas creates large amounts of carbon monoxide, which is extremely dangerous for humans. By having the pipe go over the car rather than underneath, any leaks in the pipe can vent the gas into the air where it can harmlessly diffuse. This simple change could avoid the situation of having carbon monoxide leaking into the passenger cab. Of course, this theory could be completely wrong. There could be a much more simpler explanation, such as not being enough clearance under the car. Fixing it to the roof may have just been easier for the mechanic. This is another example of a bit more stylish compromise for the unit, which is now in a towable trailer. This is a truck that runs on wood gas, and it's pretty close to an example of the ones that were used in World War II. And here we have a tractor running on wood gas. This isn't one from World War II, although I could easily have found pictures of them. I wanted to show you guys this tractor. You can see it's Frankenstein's monster-esque as it's made with a mishmash of parts. All the parts making the unit seem to look like scrap, which goes back to my point of saying the system is relatively simple to assemble. And here, nothing to do with World War II now, we have a compact gasifier unit running a generator to make electricity. In this video he actually shows he's running power tools from his wood gas generator. This video is actually a great source if you want to know more about gasifiers, as it provides good commentary on how his unit works as he goes through the startup procedure of it. I guess what I find most interesting about wood gas is that it's kind of like a lost technology. Most people watching this video would never have heard about this at all. Sure, there's good reasons why wood gas is not widely used anymore. The way I see it, gasifier is kind of beaten by the convenience of oil. Oil has more energy per cubic meter than wood gas, and also oil does not involve additional equipment to be strapped to your car. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want, feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Comment down below if you want to add something to the discussion. I'm always reading the comments. I'm also going to direct you to Top 10 Weird World War II Tanks Part 1. I reckon you would enjoy that. Part 2 is on the way soon. Thanks for watching.
Like, comment and subscribe, or I'll break your f***ing legs.